I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, so let's talk about a new Canadian film hitting theaters this weekend. It's called Morningside. It's directed by Ron Diaz. It follows the lives of young adults living and working around the Morningside Avenue area in Scarborough, which is Toronto's East End suburb. It's about coming of age and following your dreams while navigating family expectations and the streets and gentrification. And here's a bit of the Morningside trailer.
These kids are out here killing each other. And for what? To protect an area, a hood that we don't even own?
Hey, yo, back up,
Chill
dog.
out. Come on, Breeze.
What's the problem, bro?
You can get me in trouble.
Is there a problem here?
That's a bit of the trailer for Morningside, which again is set in Scarborough, the place that I've called home for most of my life. And Huda Hassan and Catherine Hernandez, they grew up there too. They're both with me now to talk about this film. Fam, what's going?
Hey.
Hello, hey.
Listen, this being the all Scarborough panel. Here's my first question to the both of you, starting with you, Catherine. What personal memories come up when you hear the name Morningside?
Well, I am a Morningside and Lawrence girl. And I remember being a kid and a friend of mine just got her driver's license. So she was like, get in the car. We're going to 7-Eleven. We went to the 7-Eleven to get Slurpees. And on our way out, who is entering the 7-Eleven other than Maestro Fresh West? Okay. How much more Scarborough of a moment can you have? Right?
Legends.
Legend. Yeah. Totally. Like write the scene. It's already there. Yeah.
Well, Huda, what comes to mind for you when you think of Morningside?
I mean, I was also on Lawrence, Markham Road, where there was the Cedar Brae Theater. But for me, Morningside, I think about taking the bus to Morningside and Milner to sneak into the Cineplex there, especially throughout my youth, sometimes going at 12 p.m., come out 9 p.m. at night.
Listen, shout out to James Loader, the iconic Scarborough cinema usher who you were clearly sneaking past.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Huda, but look, this is a film, Morningside, that tackles coming of age, chasing your dreams, but also navigating the expectations that these kids are feeling from their families and their friends, and in some cases from the streets. Was there a particular theme that resonated with you the most?
Yeah, I think the theme that resonated the most was the appearance of watching youth talking about gentrification. There was a very real scene where we see some of the youth in the film on the old RT, RIP, and they're dissecting the rebordering of Scarborough. And as they're having that conversation, the visuals also tell you a story about what's happening to the borough too. And the film also got me thinking about this ongoing problem in Toronto, which is the problem of missing third spaces, especially for young people in the city, especially in the ends. And it got me thinking about, for instance, Morningside Heights, how the area didn't really have a City of Toronto recreation center until last year, I believe. But I think it's an issue that expands the entirety of the city. Many young people across the city struggle finding belonging.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like that's a theme that's resonating in a lot of the new Scarborough movies that pop up, including yours, Catherine. But Catherine, I mean, I want to talk about the cast in this movie because it includes pop singer Fifi Dobson, Alex Malari Jr., who starred in the Netflix film, the sci-fi film Code 8 and its 2024 sequel. It's got Olenike Adili from the award-winning TV series The Porter and films like The Fire Inside and Village Keeper. Like, are there any performances or moments that really spoke to you personally?
So, surprisingly, it wasn't like, the cataclysmic moments that spoke to me, but the moments in the film where we see like the minutiae of life in an underserved community. And in particular, there was an exchange between the characters, Nikki and Shanice, that spoke to me. Nikki was speaking Shanice out of what seemed to be like this triple knot of bad decisions. And it was this welcome moment of truth in the film. And that said, I longed for female characters with more depth, We have like the selfless single mother, the young girl who dreams of being famous, the woman who can't help but keep on opening her doors to her lying, cheating boyfriend. And in the spirit of generosity between artists, like I would just encourage all of us to create feminine characters who serve more purpose than being like these accessories or props in a scene.
Well, look, I mean, it's worth mentioning that when this film was originally announced in 2022, its working title was Danzig, in reference to the Danzig Street in Scarborough. The film was actually about the horrific shooting that took place at a block party on that street in 2012. 2 innocent people died, and more than 20 others were injured in what's described as the worst mass shooting in Toronto history. But more recently, the director, Ron Diaz, and his team have been sending mixed messages about the film and its connection to Danzig, even asking the media to not make those associations. But Huda, like, there are very clear connections in this film to that tragedy. Can you spell out those connections for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, the film is now called Morningside, which might seem like a different place, but it's clearly still in Scarborough, and Danzig is a street off of Morningside Ave. So the 2 lead characters in the film who are tragically shot and killed, unfortunately, are a young Black girl, an aspiring singer, and a Filipino kid who's an aspiring cop. But in real life, in 2012, the 2 kids who were slain, unfortunately, rest in peace, was a young black girl named Cheyenne Charles and a Filipino kid named Joshua Yase. The Filipino kid in the film is also named Josh, similar to the real life victim, right? And then in real life and in the movie, both Joshes had dreams of becoming a cop. So the film is actually not distanced from this really violent tragedy of Scarborough, and there's no trigger warning provided in the process.
So you're seeing those connections?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they're explicitly clear.
Yeah. And so, Catherine, like, what about you? What are you making of the connections to to the Danzig tragedy?
Like, I want to do like a really super quick preface is that artists create work with the residue of their real life experiences all the time, right? Now, that's our job, to observe and to create. But given these obvious connections that Huda is saying, it's obvious that the film, like, to me, is like it's obvious to me at least that it's historical extrapolation. And I'm just curious more than anything about the choice to not call it what it is. Like for my book Behind You, which is loosely based on what life was like in my neighborhood when there was a serial killer at large, I really made it clear this is fiction based on true crime because I didn't want to glorify the actual killer. I had my reasons. I'm just curious as to what their reasons were. That's like I'm just curious because it's kind of confounding, Yeah.
Well, Huda, I mean, we got to acknowledge that, I mean, you actually reached out to the production behind this film back in 2022 with your own concerns about them making a film inspired by the Danzig Street shooting, all right? And to be clear, we only found that out after we had asked you to be a part of this panel. But now that you've watched Morningside, how are you feeling about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expressed concerns back then because I felt as if certain events were being exploited and it felt like a trauma porn. It read as a trauma porn. Now that I've watched it, I still think it is in some ways, but there are a few things that I also simultaneously really appreciate. The casting is wonderful. There's a lot of familiarity happening throughout the film of intersections, streets, artists that are being cited, restaurants, all these meaningful references to Scarborough that is so incredibly special. And you get to observe that through a critique of gentrification simultaneously, right? But they could have done a better job again at examining where this inspiration is coming from and what they're trying to do with that inspiration. Are we honoring families? Are we informing the public? There's no context provided around that.
I agree. Catherine, I mean, there are, of course, as you mentioned, like sensitivities that come with bringing a fictional story about a real community and a real place to the big screen. As someone who, you wrote a book rooted in Scarborough that you then adapted into the 2021 film Scarborough. How do you navigate that?
So the reason why I chose documentary filmmakers, so we have Shasha Nakai and Rich Williamson producing the adaptation was because I wanted the community's essence to be captured as it is observed, like no polish, because it's not a polished place, right? If we wanted audiences to understand the raw honesty of our hometown, we had to be raw and honest. But I have to go back to historical extrapolation. Like there's a strange thing that happens when storytellers take a step back from cold hard facts and we focus on building characters with depth. And what ends up happening is that we end up telling the truth in a better way. So I imagine that if we pair, a commitment to historical extrapolation, right, with a more in-depth exploration of character, I think I would have better understood the impact of of like this tragic event on our community. Yeah.
Well, so Huda, speaking about the community, like so Morningside, it's about to hit theaters across Canada beginning tomorrow, including the Morningside and Milner Theatre that you have history of sneaking into. What do you want people to know about the real people and communities that inspired it?
I mean, Scarborough is a beautiful place. I think all three of us know that. And you see it in the film in so many ways. And, by the end of the film, I sat with that. But at the same time, much like the rest of Toronto, many families in Scarborough and across the city are navigating grief due to a lot of increased violence associated with gentrification, right? Much like the families of Joshua Yassé and Cheyenne Charles. And I hope people reflect on that. When we consume or make art around violence, who is the story for?
That's really beautiful. Catherine, what about you? What are you thinking? What do you want people to take away from this?
I really want to echo what Huda says, just really uplift what she's saying. It's absolutely, I completely stand by that, like 100%. I also just want to say that our community deserves joy. It deserves rest. It deserves better transit. Like, baby, I'm still waiting for the 54 bus. I don't even know when is it coming. I don't know. But yeah, but we deserve joy. And I think again, commitment to character as storytellers, especially from our area, a better commitment to characters will tell a stronger story. And it's just an encouragement. Again, generosity from artist to artist. That's it.
It's beautiful, beautiful. So we're going to leave it there. And next time we are doing this at Markham Station. Okay, you guys? Like live show out at Markham Station, 3 a.m. Okay. Thank you both for speaking to me about all this.
Thank you, Rad.
Huda Hassan is a writer and culture critic from Toronto, now based in New York City. Catherine Hernandez is the author of the book Scarborough and the screenwriter for the feature film of the same name. Morningside begins showing in select theaters across Canada tomorrow, and you can catch the director, Ron Diaz, talking about the film on Q next week.